I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I am your host, Cynthia James, and I am so grateful to be with you. I get the honor of introducing you to spectacular women, women that inspire me, women that are change makers, women that have decided to step into their passion and their power. And so I'm grateful that I get to do this every week. We are also on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. Just please sign up, subscribe, and come play with us, right? You can also go to cynthiajames.net and sign up for it there. So I'm happy today. I have a repeat guest. Her name is Stephanie Weaver, and she's a TED-style speaker, coach, writer, and recipe developer based in Oceanside, California. When I did my TED Talk, she was my coach. And I got to tell you, it was an exquisite experience because she could stand with me in my excitement, in my nerves, in my doubts. She could just stand with me. And she has coached over 200 speakers in the TED style, working with clients worldwide. She's the author of 4 books, including the Migraine Relief Plan and her brand new book, Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook. Follow her on social media, yes? So, Stephanie, welcome. I am so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me again, Cynthia. It's an honor, and I love talking with you and with your audience.
So I just want to talk about, I want those that didn't see you before, just talk a little bit about your background, where you were born, because I'm sure you didn't come on the planet going, I'm going to be coaching TED speakers.
This is very true. So I was born in Pittsburgh, grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and Stamford, Connecticut. I went to college in Detroit, New York, and Chicago, and did grad school in Chicago as well. So kind of Midwest, Northeast upbringing. And then in 1997, I moved out to California. And so I'm a West Coast transplant, very happily out here. And my background, I studied film and television and architecture and didn't really have a strong direction about what I wanted to do with those things. But I ended up working in the museum field and kind of combined all of those interests. So I worked in museums for about 30 years, eventually was a consultant, wrote a book, and consulted all over the country about the visitor or guest experience. And that was my first book. And it was a wonderful job. I got to serve communities all over the country and help make museums more welcoming and more inclusive, which was fantastic. And I mostly worked on the content of exhibitions when I was on staff at places. So things like the Dead Sea Scrolls and giant pandas. And so I'm great at cocktail parties because I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And I usually have either coached someone or worked on something very similar to whatever who I'm talking to is about. So I can usually kind of get into their world a little bit. And that's what I love about coaching, is I get to do a deep dive with really interesting people and really get to know them quickly and then help them hone their message and coach them to do fantastic on stage as you did, and your 77,000 views and counting of your TEDx talk, which is awesome. So yeah, of course, I didn't grow up actually really imagining any kind of career. I kind of wanted to be a writer, but I didn't have a lot of faith in myself or thought that I had anything worthwhile to say. And part of that is because I come from an abuse background. And so I ended up writing for other people for years and years and years, where I was not supposed to have a voice because I was a technical writer, so you weren't supposed to know who wrote the piece. And so it's been an interesting transition for me to step into my voice. I started with a food blog, 2010. And then that led to me writing a small memoir about losing a pet. And then that led to when I was diagnosed with migraines at age 53, the Migraine Relief Plan to help other people, and now the Full Color Cookbook, which is out officially July 12th, 2022, but it's been shipping. The supply chain means that when the things get to warehouses, they just start sending them out. So book launches are just kind of a different animal than they used to be, but it's very exciting, getting great response from people. And the recipes are all anti-inflammatory. So regardless of whether or not you experience migraine attacks, they're great for a lot of folks who are trying to, eat and to support their health.
Yeah, how beautiful. What a journey you've had. It's quite exquisite to listen to. I want to talk a little bit about your voice. My new book is called Does My Voice Matter? And I've been with a lot of women who have really been on quite a journey to find their voices. And so it sounds like you had a little bit of a journey, because I came from abuse as a childhood person as well. So I guess, I want to get into the migraines, but I want to get into, was the work with the migraines what supported you in finding your voice, or was it something else that opened the portal?
Well, there was a little bit of personal narrative in my book for museum professionals when I would talk about different experiences that I'd had to illustrate points. So I started there. I started kind of using my experience in a teaching mode. So I would talk about somewhat personal things, but only in the essence of trying to teach or support a point that I was making. And then the food blog was probably where it opened back up, because I did take a couple of food writing classes, and it was very much about making the recipe personal. Because anybody, you can go to a million websites and get a recipe for meatloaf, but why my recipe, right? Why would you want to make my recipe? And I think if people who watch Food Network see that, the reason that those people that have those shows do well is because you get to know them. You get to know Ina Garten and her husband Jeffrey, and why she likes to entertain, and that their personality is part of what makes it interesting, and not just any kind of recipe that they're sharing. So I think it was the food blog that kind of started me on the path. And then, my second book, which is called Golden Angels, a pet loss memoir, which I self-published in 2013. We lost our first dog, which is, some people call them heart dogs, the one that really just touches your heart so deeply. We don't have children, and it's not like we dressed her up as a baby or anything like that, but we really, she sort of met that need for us to kind of have a being that we loved very deeply. And so when she died, I was so unexpectedly destroyed. I just wasn't expecting the level of grief that I experienced. And then right after she died, we lost 7 family members in the following 18 months. So it was just death after death after death. And the only way that I could think of to respond to that was to write. And initially I thought they were just going to be a bunch of blog posts. And then I had this stack, so I finally was like, oh, is this a book? Like, am I writing a book? And it's very personal. And would anybody want this? And so I worked with somebody to help kind of shape it. And we ended up with 13 essays and a recipe to help tell the story, because food is always very much a part of what I do. And put it out on Kindle, and it did pretty well. And then people started asking, well, when I want to buy the book for other people. So, it was seeing that people did respond to my actual voice, and that they recognized my writing and started responding to my writing, and getting that feedback loop was very helpful. At the time, blogs were, I think, way more popular and had a lot more interaction than they do now, because I think the market got sort of saturated. But at any rate, when I started working on the Migraine Relief Plan, there was a fair bit of personal narrative, because it's kind of a medical mystery, and then it's a lifestyle guide, and then it's an actual cookbook as well. And when I turned that manuscript in, the editor, I said, all the personal narrative can go. If it doesn't serve the reader, I'm totally fine. You can cut all of it. And she said, oh no, I want more. I want more about you. I want more stories. And she would give me specific examples, like, can you tell me about this a little bit more? And I say, well, so you really want me to put in that I had to throw up on the lawn, my neighbor's lawn, in front of a bunch of construction workers because I couldn't make it home? She said, yeah, tell that story. And that was not, it wasn't my training as a technical writer. it certainly wasn't comfortable. And as someone who came from an abuse background, um, I had shut dissociation is how I survived, right? So being disconnected from my feelings and my voice and my body was how I survived. It's a very great tool when you're young and bad things are happening to you, but it doesn't serve us as adults. It doesn't serve us long term. So it's sort of been a gradual evolution of me working towards sharing more of myself in my writing. And I've had a few pieces published that are way more personal, more kind of memoir style essays. And I actually have a memoir that I'm trying to sell at the moment. That's 100% personal. So it's been I'd say a 10-year evolution of me accepting that I actually do have something worthwhile to say. And if I could speak to my 18-year-old self who was writing things and submitting them to places like the New Yorker and getting these very polite typed responses, which I still can't even believe I did at that age, I would just say, keep submitting, don't stop writing. You do have something worthwhile to say, and you'll learn how to do it well, and eventually you're going to get yeses. And I just wish I hadn't had that 40-year interim where I wasn't doing that, because I think who knows where I'd be. I might have 15 books out at this point in time.
Yeah, but what you just said is really interesting, because a lot of us give up before the miracle. A lot of us give up before, but how incredible that your little person, your younger self knew, keep submitting, keep moving. I think that is so important, because, the journey isn't always easy, and it isn't always a straight line. And I don't know where you would have been if you hadn't had that little interrupt. But I know that in that interrupt, there was a lot of knowledge and experience that happened. So I want to
therapy.
A lot of
therapy.
Yeah. Hello. Me too.
So much therapy. Yeah.
Yes. But I want to say this. I want to talk about migraines for a minute. And I just want to start with, I have some people that I work with, and they've had migraines reoccurring over time, and there's medications and all this stuff. But one of the things that one of them said to me that was very interesting is that when there happens to be a lot of stress in her life, she noticed that the migraines kind of come back in with a fury. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, so stress is definitely one of the triggers. So I'll just make a note about what migraine disease is and what it isn't. So most people think of it as a bad headache. It's actually a neurobiological condition or disease that has hereditary components. And so what that means is you always have it there, but it's whether or not you're going to have an attack. So the attacks can be really unpredictable. For a lot of women, they are connected to the menstrual cycle because they're connected to hormonal changes, and stress is definitely a known trigger. So the idea with both of my books is that, let's say this is my, I'm for those of you just listening, I'm raising my hand about eye level. If this is my migraine threshold, meaning if I go above it, I'm going to have an attack, I am trying to live, and now my hand is down kind of my chest level, down here, so that I have a lot more leeway if I have a stressful day, if I don't go to sleep at the same time and get up at the same time. Migraine pains like regularity more than anything. So drinking water throughout the day, eating regularly, getting some kind of movement, doing some kind of relaxation or meditation practice, all of those things are known by doctors and research to really help. And then that's also helps with stress management, right? If you're doing relaxation or some kind of regular practice. And then the food piece of it is, ideally, you want to reduce inflammation in your body, because if we have inflammatory chemicals in our brain, it's just a riper environment for an attack to trigger out. And then some people like myself actually have foods that can trigger an attack. That's the controversial piece of this. Not every doctor agrees, and there's probably never going to be great research on it because it's just too difficult to do. But the idea with my plan is it reduces inflammation. It helps you identify which triggers you have, and those can be environment. My biggest one is weather. And super bright, hot, dry days are just terrible for me. So I can't control that, but I can wear migraine glasses. I've tinted the windows on my car. I have room darkening shades. And I can also make sure, if the weather's going to be like that, that maybe I do other things that are extra special supportive to help reduce the chance that I'm going to have it. We can't control the attacks, but that's sort of the idea.
Yeah, well, and so important. I'm so glad you talked about the definition of it, what it means. And so I want to talk about, your new book because first of all, did you do all the recipes or did people help you? Because this is to take down inflammation, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it's an anti-inflammatory plan. So that's gluten-free because gluten can be inflammatory for a lot of people. It's very low sugar, it's low in sodium, which helps people who have vertigo or any kind of balance issues, which can be common. And yeah, I developed all the recipes myself. A lot of them are inspired by family recipes, recipes I found online or in other books that I knew could be adapted to the plan. I also did a reader survey from people reading who read my first book to ask, well, what are you looking for? And they wanted more snacks. They wanted more stuff they could cook in bulk on the weekends. So there's about 115 recipes that all follow this plan. It's beautifully photographed by a friend and a woman here in San Diego named Laura Bashar, who has a great blog called FamilySpice.com, so you can check her out. Beautiful work. It was designed by another woman who's incredibly talented designer. So in terms of it, being super user friendly, that was the goal. But I also wanted it to feel celebratory and kind of bright and inspiring. And then the other piece of it is the theme of the book is building resilience. And so I have quotes from all the people that participated in, including yourself, for my resilience series. And those are sprinkled throughout the book for inspiration. And so it's kind of a hybrid in that sense, but it is a traditional cookbook. You'll page through and you can see the snacks chapter and then the breakfast and then light meals and snacks and so on.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I think it's so important because, whether you have migraine or not, I think that women are having a big time on the planet in this moment because there's a lot going on that doesn't value us and doesn't honor us and our voices. And I think it's during these times that we don't take care of ourselves. It's during these times that we eat wrong or drink too much or don't get enough rest or exercise. So I just love that you've done this book, because resilience, from my point of view, requires attention. What's it to you? What is resilience?
It's being able to bounce back. And also, I think it's interesting you asked me that question because that's the question I ask in the series. And I've done 50 or so interviews. Everyone has a different answer. For me, I think it's about the ability to bounce back, to not fall as hard, and to have the strength to kind of do self-care. And I agree, this has been, the last couple of weeks have been extremely difficult to be a female associated person on this planet. But, and it is definitely the challenge of, when you don't feel well or you feel bombarded or you're super stressed, the last thing a lot of people want to do is cook. So part of my plan is, I've got a weekend meals chapter where you can cook when you feel up to it and then freeze a lot of those foods. And then when you need a quick something, you can pull that out of the freezer and you've got something that's going to be health supportive. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think it's so important. I think learning how to be resilient is more important than ever on this planet, and especially for the feminine, because I feel like the need for our compassion, our caring, our nurturing is it's more needed than ever. So I want you to tell people, how do they find you? How do they find your book? Because I will be getting that book as soon as we get off of here.
Yes. So you can start at stephanieweaver.com. That's StephanieWeaver.com. And that links to all my websites. So Migraine Relief Plan just describes the books and has a lot of resources on it. MigraineReliefRecipes.com has over 400 recipes for people who have various health challenges and are looking for plant-based or low sodium or et cetera. There's all kinds of, ways you can search on there. All the recipes, in my opinion, are extremely delicious and don't seem like healthy, good for you recipes. The goal is not to feel like you're being on some restricted anything. It's that you can live a really beautiful life. And that's partly why I had the photographer I did, because I wanted, this photographer made Jell-O look good. Like, I'm not kidding. There's a fruit juice gelatin recipe in there that looks exquisite. And so I just really wanted people to feel inspired to care for themselves. And so when you're feeling down, maybe you flip to a resilience quote like Cynthia's is beautiful. And if you're hungry, then you flip to a recipe and you try that out. So that's the goal. And then I'm at S Weaver MPH, like miles per hour, but it stands for Masters of Public Health on all social media channels.
Beautiful. So, ladies, I really hope that you will get this book. You know, I think the more resources that we have to be healthy, the better. And, you know, to be able to eat well and it not be horrible because somebody thinks it's healthy, but it really is healthy and it tastes good, I think is a major gift, major. So I want to know, I asked the same last question of every guest. You know, this show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important thing women should know about the importance of their awakening in this moment?
That we need you to be awake. The world needs you to be awake. And so not to be afraid of that, not to shy away from it, to embrace it. And even though it might mean difficult times ahead, that we need all your voices and we need everyone to be awake.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think our being awake allows humanity to move back into its heart and its care and its nurturing. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. I am grateful. I so love what you do, and I am in awe of how much time it must have taken to develop those recipes and cook them and have them photographed and put into a book. It's quite wonderful to witness.
Thank you. It was 6 years, and they all were tested by real people in their homes. So I'm confident that any recipe a person makes, they'll be really excited and enjoy, and their family will enjoy because they were all family tested as well.
Beautiful. So, ladies, I'm going to say the same thing I say to you every week. You know, hey, you're incredible. You're amazing. You're powerful. You're dynamic. You're on this planet at this moment for a reason. So you're awakening, you're standing in your gifts, you're delivering your gifts, you're daring to shine is essential. I'm really honored to be with you. I'm honored to support you. If you need more support, I'm at cynthiajames.net. I hope you'll come back every week and meet an exquisite woman